All right, Amy. So we've known each other for a while now, and we met when you were launching your book. People First. Tell me a little bit about what People First is about and what went into that process of writing that book.
So the process that went into it really helps clarify what People First is, because it was that process of writing the book that is what allowed me to get such good clarity on my message, my philosophy, my beliefs. So People First is the concept that in healthcare, I was a physical therapist by background, or really in any business, there is this misnomer that if we just put our customer first, and you see it everywhere. I mean, there's even a health urgent care system called patient first. So I get that that's the front facing customer experience. But as business owners and leaders, what we need to understand is that only works for us as the leader if we're the one taking care of that patient or serving that customer. But anytime you're not directly touching that customer, someone else is, and that's who you've got to take care of. And so for me, People First is recognizing that our mindset needs to be putting our people first. Our words and our actions need to support that. And that's what's going to allow our businesses to grow. And it was through the process of writing the book that I was able to clarify all that and put everything in a structure and a format so that it could make sense to other people, that it was doable. I think one of the things for me is it's got to be practical, it's got to be tactical, and the only way it's going to be sticky is if we use it. And so for me, writing the book was this clarifying experience, and now it's just about being able to say to people, hey, pick this up, chapter 7's what's going to help you out.
I love that. Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I feel like when you come into the business world, the way you see writing a book is a little bit different than when you've been in the business world for a little while. I think people think of writing a book as your big break and the way that you reach tons of people. And really, someone told me writing a book is like having a really good business card. And I think that the process of writing the book, like you said, you get so much clarity and insight into what you value, into being able to talk about what you value and what you do and get your message across. Is that what you experienced?
Absolutely. And, I think it varies for people. There are one of my friends, she writes books that are like this thick, 80 pages, and she designs them for people to get at a conference and read on the plane ride home. So she doesn't want a book that's going to take more than 2 hours to read. And they are truly an extended business card. Then there are people who write books and it is purely that educational aspect. Mine's more of a blend. I want to be that thought leader, and I created this, book to share that thought leadership. But, as you look at how thick it is, it's not quite a 2 hour read. So it's not truly a business card, but it's somewhere in between. And I think that's what was really important for me to recognize as I wrote the book. What do I want out of it? I would just want people to have better opportunities to win at work and make it easier for their employees to win at work.
I love that. So let's talk about how the clarity that you got with your book kind of translated into the actual services that you're offering, how you're working with people. I feel like since you launched your book, that's kind of been a journey you've been on to figure out how exactly to connect with people. And I think I want to talk a little bit about the types of ways that you connect that are really align with your strengths, with the ways that you like to connect and how that's evolved.
Well, and that's where I'm really grateful to you, because you've helped me stay focused and stay on the idea of, okay, what's the message here, Amy? What do you really want people to understand? And so for me, I now have the clarity. It's remembering that and sticking to it. I remember when we started working together, you said to me, Amy, you've got all of this great content, so we don't need you to develop new content every single week or every single month. And I still get in this rut where I'm like, no, I have to be writing all new articles, all new thoughts. And It's interesting because this spring I went through a program and we actually had to create our growth opportunity. And what I realized was that my growth opportunity was to actually have the book turn into my advisory services, rather than continually reinventing the wheel. I know this stuff works. I researched dozens of people for it. So we know it works. And I've been able to narrow the focus of my advisory services, cleaner packages, cleaner program offerings, which then makes it easier to speak about and share with the world.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. It's so funny how you get the clarity and then there's so many things to pull you in all of these different ways to where you step away from that clarity and have a hard time realizing you ever had that clarity. But there it is in that book originally, the blueprint for what you knew you wanted to do all along and how you want to help people. That's
Yeah, and
great.
it's wonderful, and I'm grateful. You know what the cool thing is? Like, the book's 2.5 years old. It'll actually be, oh my gosh, it's going to be 3 in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's having its third birthday, August 20th. So anyway, the book is having its upcoming birthday, and it's standing tall. It's living up to its promise, and it's also true today as it was before, as it will be in any industry. And I think that's what makes me enjoy it. I'm actually working on a keynote speech for a couple weeks, and I pulled out the book to go, okay, what did I say here? And I'm like, oh yeah. And that's what I really love about it, is it almost keeps me grounded in what works, what we know works.
Yeah, that's so good. That is definitely a testament to the heart that you put into the process of creating this book, that it's still something you can return to and be able to have that clarity. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a wonderful process to get to the book being written. I worked with an awesome coach who really, oh my gosh, we spent almost a whole month doing the outline. And that was before we started to write the book, because you have to get your foundation and your structure and then fill it in. And now I've got the book, which is my foundation and structure, and the work I get to do with clients is just filling it in.
That's so great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your marketing and your services that came out of this, then what that representation looks like. So, touching on the marketing a little bit, you mentioned how you found out you don't need to keep going and creating content all of the time. But there were some ways that you did uh put things out to reach new people, to continue to have the conversation, and that was conversation based. Anyone that knows Amy Lafko knows that she likes a good conversation. It's just, you like to talk to people, you like that in-person connection, brainstorm, bounce ideas off of each other. And I love that you started working in a marketing space that felt comfortable for you and aligned with what you enjoy doing. About 3 years ago, you started these free webinars to reach your audience, and you just get to talk, which is what you love to do. And that's the best way to put content out there. So tell me a little bit about your webinars, what kind of goes into them for you, and what you value about them.
You're right. I love connecting with people. So truly for me, it is the chance to brainstorm together. I do love to talk. And I think one of the skills I've developed as an advisor is learning to really listen. And so for me now, it's, here's a nugget of content. What are your thoughts on that? How are we going to make some changes or improvements based on that? And what I found really interesting was, initially I had created these webinars thinking they were going to be a lead magnet on their own. And so I thought, okay, I'll just put them out there and people will join for the first time, say, wow, that's really interesting, I'm going to hire her. And that's not what happened. What was really interesting was the fact that most of the people coming into the webinars were people that had already been through my training programs. And they just said, well, we need more Amy time. And so, with your help, we actually learned how to take the webinars and put them into bite-sized videos that now go on social media. So now it's just a nugget being dropped into everybody's LinkedIn feed, which has been very valuable. I get a lot of, feedback about those. People can see what I do in the same way that we want them to see what we're doing in order to know why it's going to be valuable and beneficial to them. So I think the webinars turned into a very different thing. But with, your guidance and recommendations, I'm finally doing a membership and I'm so excited for it. Like we're calling it a collaborative. It's the People First Leadership Collaborative because there's still going to be core content, learning, knowledge sharing. And then there's going to be this whole session every month that's peer-to-peer learning. And that's where I get to facilitate and do that other part that I love. And so you've helped me evolve something I love to do into something that can have a price point to it and has a double value, because in case anybody's like, oh, wait, who's that Amy Lafko again? They can go to my LinkedIn feed and you have put out all of these awesome videos that are clips from those and then tags explaining what they mean. And that's kind of cool as a way to just really be me with people.
Yeah. I love the clips so much because they, one, repurpose so you don't have to do more work creating more
Yes.
videos. Who has the time? And then two, it shows people what you do, like you said, but in the best possible way, the way that you really shine. Like because you love communicating with people and having conversations, it's so obvious in the video content. And I'm a big believer of marketing in the way that is aligned with your strengths instead of feeling like you have to do videos because people say you have to do videos, or you have to write blog posts because people say you have to write blog posts. Working within the area that really lights you up, I think people can feel that in your marketing, and that comes through in the conversations that I have with you, whether it's for fun or whether it's in marketing. So yeah.
Well, and I think that's really important because you, sometimes more than me, you get what brings me joy or what lights me up. And you're like, well, then we're just going to do that and we're going to use that. And I remember when we met, I had just come off of a pretty significant marketing campaign for the book launch. And that was all getting set up and I just was feeling overwhelmed and exhausted from all of that. It's funny, not writing the book, but getting it out into the world was what really was challenging. And then you came in and you're like, awesome, Amy, now we can market. I'm like, no, I'm done. I can't, please. And you're like, but I have, 250 pages of content that we can use. You would say to me, let me just ask you a question. And then that would turn into a LinkedIn post. And that to me is a workable way to do things. So now once a month we have a call and it's like, what do you want to talk about? What questions do you have? What do you want to, and we just talk and then it turns into what it needs to be for the marketing aspect without me having to think about what's my best marketing tool this month.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thanks, Amy. Well, let's go back to talking about your membership a little bit. Tell me more, because I'm very excited about all of this. Tell me more about the membership. If you were going to introduce it to someone new, who's it for? What kind of topics do you cover with these webinars, and what would it look like?
So the People First Leadership Collaborative is really about connection and shared learning. So what makes it different than the webinar series I was doing is that we've taken the webinars and we're augmenting them with these peer-to-peer learning sessions that are going to be facilitated once a month. Because what I found is during the webinars, I'd get a ton of questions in chat, or we'd have a bunch of questions come up. I'd get emails afterwards and people would say, well, what about this? How do I handle that? And I said to myself, I wish we had a place where we could add that component to it. But really, when we think about what the collaborative is and why it exists, the collaborative is to help leaders who understand that they want to be able to be skilled in these areas, and they just want the details on the how to make that happen. So we go into some areas really deeply. For example, we're doing gaps in accountability, and we're looking at through crucial accountability, they have 6 components where you look at, is it an individual level? Is it a social level? Is it environmental and structural? We're doing each of those in a 1-month segment because we want people to be able to say, okay, I've identified that it is an individual gap. Now, what do I do about that? And we want to give tools and real action-oriented things. Plus, then every once in a while, we throw in a bit of fun. I mean, at the end of the year, we do this activity where we really look at, where have you grown? What did you not get accomplished? And what do you want to look at for next year? And then last July, we did some improv. So you never know fully what we're going to get. And the thing that I've been really grateful for is that the content and the topics have come from people that participate. They ask questions and I'm like, great, next month we're going to actually dive into that. So we've gone through productive conflict. We've gone through communication strategies. We've gone through listening. We've talked about accountability. And even when you've heard the topic, there's always something more to learn. So we revisit stuff. If I get enough questions about a certain topic, I'm like, we're going back. Let's talk about this again.
That's so great. Yeah, it's such a wonderful offering. I feel like the idea in itself is so great. And the way that you're coming into this with having so much experience from the free webinars, like you've been having these conversations, and then this recent renewed clarity in your original core foundation with the book. It just all feels so solid where you just get to show up and, you don't have to be nervous about it. You just get to show up and have the conversation and be present because you're so used to talking about this type of thing and helping people in this area. And it's so clearly what you're passionate about. So I love that.
Oh, thank you. And what I love about the roundtables is it is intended to be a group discussion. A lot of coaching programs, they have the hot seat, and there may be a time where someone asks a question and we dive into it and help them solve that specifically. There's going to be other times, though, where we're going to use the collective wisdom of everybody in the room. So you asked before, who is it for? I would not say that this is for someone who's in that executive C-suite, who's considers themselves an executive leader. It is for business owners and mid-level managers and senior leaders of organizations that feel like we haven't gotten all of the opportunities to get educated on these things as we'd like to. Because I don't want someone who says, you know what, I've got these 27 competencies nailed and I just want to learn this one thing. We might not be right for you, but for the most part, anybody that has a desire to improve or reinforce what they know, that's the point of the webinars. And then the point of the roundtables is to come and say, here's the success I had this month. Here's where it didn't go so well. And then we figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, and it's kind of this double win of you're getting the tips and the advice and the consulting in that kind of format, but you're also getting the community. And I think that's such a cool thing that you've created because being in those roles can be tremendously lonely. And I feel like a problem feels so much worse when you feel like you've just failed at something. This isn't something that happens to everybody, so being able to come together in a group and talk about those things and have that shared experience seems like a big part of this. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the community aspect?
Absolutely. And, I just completed a series of webinars with a group, and yesterday was our last series. And when we do that series, it is very much, here's some content, let's break that down and work through it, with me facilitating some, very action-oriented questions, leading questions, that type of thing, and getting the group to actually weigh in and help each other. And so last night, someone asked a question and someone else went, and I said, okay, tell me what that face meant. And they go, oh my gosh, I had that happen just the other day. And it was like, oh, and the person said, thank you, I'm not alone. And the other person said, here's how I handled it. And then the next person could chime in and say, well, here's how I've handled it. And the other person said, how am I going to know if that happens to me? So it was all different experience with that same topic, but they could support each other as well. And you're right, we aren't alone in this. I mean, and I feel like you have helped me see that so much in the way that you keep things focused and organized and just moving through, because it's like, okay, we've been here. Here's where we're going. Let's just go make that happen. And I love that.
Oh, that's great. I have loved being able to be a part of this process with you, Amy, and it's so exciting to see this membership come to life and just reflect so much of what you've been building for all of this time.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm very, very grateful. So thank you.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. It was great to hear more about the membership.
Thank you for asking some really good questions. This was fun.
Absolutely.